This episode of Playing on a Budget is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 source of games and gaming accessories, and by GatheringMagic.com, the #1 source of Magic the Gathering news and articles. Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with another episode of Playing on a Budget. This deck was inspired by a kid at my local game store who came to me with a few white heroic cards, and some green cards, and wanted to build a Selesnya heroic deck. And you know from watching my Playing on a Budgets, I've probably done almost every heroic color combination out there, as it is one of my favorite mechanics from Theros that I just feel hasn't quite received its potential. Now, I already did playtest this deck because I was showing him, we sat down and built this deck on MTG, and I played a few rounds, and actually went 3-2 with it. A lot of the matchups against the mono black were very favorable because of the Rangers, Guiles, and God's Willing. So I'm really liking this deck, and I'm hoping it will perform for you here on Playing on a Budget. So before we get into the deck, let's go ahead and look at the prices. This deck is pricey because of 2 cards, but it still is under the budget. So it's Fiendslayer Paladin here and Temple Garden. And besides these two, the deck is incredibly inexpensive, and Fiendslayer Paladin is kind of a sideboard option. I bring it in versus Boros and bring it in versus mono black Devotion, so you could actually make the argument that this is main boardable. It definitely is a great card with the lifelink first strike and kind of the pseudo hexproof versus black and red spells. Anyway, we'll go over to the prices here. They're brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 source for Magic Gathering singles and a great sponsor to this channel and this series. So please go support them. So here we have it on Cool Stuff. I've compiled all the rares here and even put in Unflinching Courages. They're 75 cents. It's another sideboard option. But so besides the Temple Garden's $11 and the Fiendslayer Paladin's at $7, I mean respectively, that's going to be little over $70 of the budget here. So the rest of the deck is a whopping $20 basically if you want to build it without the Temple Gardens and the Fiendslayer Paladins. I do highly suggest Temple Gardens. Unfortunately, one of the problems with this deck is consistency on the mana. I mean, you want to run as many green sources as possible to cast your green spells, but you need double white. You have to hit double white in this deck for it to work. So let's go over the mana right now. I've just got 4 forests and 4 temple gardens. I messed around again with Selesnya guild gates, and they were the most awful thing ever because you always wanted an untapped land, and you're just begging to lose. The problem with this deck is it can win on turn 4 pretty consistently if you hit all your land drops and if you get the right combination of spells. Like I said, mono black Devotion just caves to this when you put out like a first turn Dryad Militant, Favored Hoplite, or Soldier of the Pantheon, and then a second turn you drop like a Phalanx Leader and they don't have the removal, then what I do is I bring in all the Rangers, Guiles, and God's Willing, and then they try to ultimate price it, God's Willing. They try to Doomblade it, again, Rangers, Guile, and all these things. And it's just amazing if you are able to Rangers, Guile, Phalanx Leader, and it puts counters on everything. It's the best feeling in the entire world. So, but if you stumble on a land drop and have to tap out for creatures, a lot of times I play the Fabled Heroes and Wild Beastmasters on like turn 4 if I'm going up against mono black, because you need to protect them. So, and then if you miss a land drop and whatnot and don't hit that 4th or 3rd land drop, a lot of times then the mono black just gets going and there's no way you can beat him. The cool thing about this deck, one of the matchups, I wish I had this recorded, again it was just playtesting, was I went first turn Dryad Militant into second turn Favored Hoplite, Soldier Pantheon, and it was like Devour Flesh, Doomblade, and I didn't have the ways. I did have one way to protect it, so he had to end up casting 4 removals like Freakish Cure, all these things to try to kill all my guys, and then we were both down. We basically both unloaded our hands, and we were down to top deck mode, and 4th turn he throws out a Desecration Demon, and I was able to Selesnya Charm it. My 4th turn I put out a Fabled Hero with protection up, so he just decides to go for the kill with, he had a whip out, and he decided to Gray Merchant, and then so I had to take 4 life, and then the next turn he Gray Merchant again, and he was down to 5, so he went up to 16 with the double Gray Merchants, and I had a Fabled Hero, a God's Willing, and a Phytoburst in my hand, and was able to Phytoburst the Fabled Hero and give it God's Willing protection from black, so his guys couldn't block, And then this dude was a 10-10 double striker and swung in for the win. So, I mean, this deck can come back out of nowhere. Your opponents always have to play around the threat that I will one turn kill them with either a Fencing Ace or Fabled Hero. So let's just talk about the creatures right now and how they interact. I'm playing as many 1-drops as possible. I've thought about putting Path to Bravery in the sideboard, or also the what is it? The Staff of Heliod, or Spear of Heliod, that's what it's called, to kind of be an Anthem effect for these guys. But I would really like a 2-mana Anthem. 3-mana Anthems are kind of weird in this deck. So, I mean, I'm not running the most creatures ever. 24 is what I've decided on. I've messed around with 28, I've messed around with 22, but I'm thinking that 24 plus the amount of pump spells that I use is the perfect amount. I mean, I could go up more Fencing Aces, which I might want to, because these cards can just be a blowout for certain decks, especially, like I said, the God's Willing combo. And again, I'm messing around with God's Willing versus Ranger's Guile as well. I kind of like Ranger's Guile a little better because it gets the +1/+1. But I'm trying to think, maybe God's Willing. I'm gonna fix that right now. I'm gonna go 2 God's Willing and 1 Ranger's Guile. Yeah, I think God's Willing a little bit better. I think protection from a particular color is better than hexproof in a lot of cases. But the thing about Ranger's Guile is I've been able to use this in response to, like, an Anger of the Gods, to put a Favored Hoplite out of range. And again, it's just kind of this mess around with both of them. I mean, I'm running a whopping 4 copies of both. So anyway, let's get back to the creatures. I'll quit blabbing about the pumps until I get there. But anyway, so it's 12 1-drops, and then we have 6 2-drops with Phalanx Leader, which is actually incredibly powerful with these 1-drops, and the Fencing Ace. And then we have 4 Fabled Heroes and 2 Wild Beastmasters. This card, again, can be a blowout. If you go like first turn Soldier Pantheon, Dryad Militant, second turn, or that was second turn Dryad Militant, Favored Hoplite or whatever. And third turn Wild Beastmaster. Fourth turn you can swing in. You can like Phytoburst or Wild Beastmaster. Swing for 6. All your other guys get +6/+6, and then they're just plain dead. Again, I don't know how well this card works. He usually eats removal really quick. He's a lot harder to keep alive than a Fabled Hero that just gets gigantic. And the cool thing about Fabled Hero, on their turn, if they try to kill him and you giant growth him, at least you still get some value by putting a +1/+1 counter on it. So there's a few other heroic cards out of green that you could definitely use. The 4 mana gets 2 +1/+1 counters every time it's targeted, but I think that these are strictly better. And of course, there's plenty of cards out of green-white that you could use instead. Like Loxodon and Smiter is definitely okay. And the Voice of Resurgence would be really good in this deck too, and Advent the Worm. But then you're looking too much like Naya, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose of this deck. So this, I think, is the best 60 cards I can come up with so far. As far as the pump spells are concerned, the best pump spell by far is Selesnya Charm, because it gives it +2/+2 and Trample. And that Trample is very, very pertinent. And if you have to, you can put a 2/2 white token into play, which isn't horrible. I've used that plenty of times after like a Supreme Verdict, and I get a Selesnya Charm out, and then it's at least 2 damage. Then, I can always Phytoburst Selesnya Charm when my opponent's tapped out. And by that time, Esper and UI control a lot of times are very, very low. Soldier Pantheon is just an incredibly good card against both those, because it dodges the Azorius Charms and Detention Spheres, as they cannot target it as with multicolor. Plus, you have plenty of like God's Willing, Ranger Guiles you can bring in against those cards as well. So one of the problems that we are facing is the Supreme Verdicts. I thought about, is it called Ready Willing? Is that what it is? Ready and Willing? Let's look it up. Is that the Death Touch? But then you'd probably want to splash black for the Death Touch. Oh, geez. Why is Ready? So Ready, Willing, yes. So creature control gain indestructible. You can definitely put that or Rootbound Defenses in there instead, or for protection against the Supreme Verdicts. But if that were the case, I'd probably want to splash in some black for Willing. And you never know. You might want to... I've tried a little Naya build to put Gorklan Rampager in here, but Gorklan Rampager does not work with Heroic. And I've also, you definitely could go a little bit of a black strategy. I wouldn't be totally against that, to our splashing black for a few cards. Even any sort of removal like Abrupt Decay or Golgari Charm would be great as well. But anyway, I think this is the best 60 I've been able to come up with. We got a 2 of Phytoburst. I was playing 1 of, but I thought that this card was powerful enough to put 2 of, a 2 of Giant Growth in here, and then the Selesnya Charm. Those are our pump spells. I'm not liking Dauntless Onslaught. In theory, this card should be really good, but Common Bond, a lot of times, is just so much better because the value stays there. You get to put a +1/+1 counter on creatures, and if you only have one creature out, you can put this on just one creature. because it doesn't have to be another creature like the common bond does. So that is it doesn't trigger heroic twice, though, on the same creature. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. So let's just go over the sideboard real quick. Again, the Rangers, Guiles, and the God's Willings coming against the anti-creature decks. The Fiendslayer Paladins, of course, coming against Boros and against Mono Black Devotion. The Unflinching Courages I like to bring in against red deck wins. I like to bring in against any other aggressive strategy, because sometimes all you need to do is put like an Unflinching Courage on a Favored Hoplite or even like a Fabled Hero, and they can't come back from it. It's 2/2 trample, lifelink. You leave up your Rangers, Guiles, and want to protect your creature. And I mean, on Fabled Hero, that's a 5/5 double strike trample, lifelink. That's a great card. So a great little combo there. And then you just leave up, like I said, the Rangers, Guile, God willing, protect it, and then you're golden. So again, this has been posting up pretty decent numbers for a budget deck. It's very, very fun to play. You win games out of nowhere, and I'm hoping that I can replicate that. At least a 3-2 like I did earlier in the playtest. I think I've refined this deck a bit more than my initial playtesting. So again, it's kind of cool how inspiration can come sometimes. It's just a new player trying to find a deck that will work for him. Came up with this deck, or at least came up with the idea that I was able to refine. Anyway, this has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.